to A Well-Designed Business. My name is LuAnn, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company Window Works from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. Let me ask you a question. Do you know that your CPA is doing the right thing by you? And by do you know, I mean do you know? Not do you think, do you assume, but specifically do you know? Now look, I realize that all CPAs aren't like my good friend and co-author and podcast guest, Peter Lang, the designer CPA, a CPA who specializes in working specifically with interior designers, and the kind of CPA who insists on monthly meetings, not just year-end drive-by consults. And I'm just going to tell you, Peter, I know you're listening. I just want to warn you. You are going to hang your head in sadness during this show, thinking of all the other CPAs out there who don't take the pride and care in their clients and businesses the way you do. So let me ask you again, knowing you have a CPA, do you feel confident that your finances, your taxes, all your money is as it should be? I'm betting that your answer is yes. Well, my guest today, Shirry Dolgin, is here to tell you that you cannot make this assumption. And if you are making this assumption, you could be at risk for a very hard and very expensive lesson like the one that she learned at the outset of her career. Wait until you hear her story. And before I tell you all about Shirry, let's take a moment to thank Article. Please remember Article the next time you have a project that calls for sleek, mid-century furniture. Their Scandinavian-inspired designs are perfect for living rooms, dining rooms, offices, and outdoor spaces. If you're listening in real time, summer 2020, you know this is the summer that more than ever people are designing their backyards for their staycations because of COVID-19. This is the time to capitalize on the burst of outdoor living and design. Open your trade account today at welldesigned.article.com. And I ask you to please use this specific URL because like many well-run businesses, Article tracks where its business comes from. So let them know you heard about them here by going to welldesigned.article.com to get set up today. Now, Shirry Dolgin established her firm, ASD Interiors, in 2004. She's been featured in a variety of media outlets, including several TV appearances. A native of Los Angeles and the daughter of the owner of a construction company, Shirry specializes in large-scale residential and commercial projects, and she has built a reputation as one of the most knowledgeable renovations interior designers in the industry. Shirry's on-screen career began in 2006 when she was asked to participate in a renovation project for television. With a background in performing arts, she was a natural. Her TV credits include a design and remodel segment on KTLA Morning Show, an appearance on HGTV's Selling LA, and a feature of her live work office on You Live in What? For HGTV. She has participated in several episodes of House Hunters Renovation and was a two-time winner of HGTV's design competition show Design Wars. ASD Interiors projects have been featured in Traditional Home and Apartment Therapy and published in the Kitchen Bible. I'm very delighted to introduce you to Shirry Dolgin. Hi, Shirry. Thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Hi, LuAnn. It's a pleasure to be here.
I am so delighted to welcome you to the show. I know that we're sort of Instagram buddies here, and we kind of know each other a little bit.
That's right.
Yes, and I have to say I've recognized and seen you and aware of your support of the show for the last couple of years. And whenever I notice that and I know it and I finally get a chance to speak to you, I like to say thank you right out loud to you. So thank you, Shirry.
Oh my goodness. Are you kidding me? Thank you. What you've been doing for our industry, it's like God's work. I can't even tell you. And I've been a supporter from the very beginning, and I absolutely adore and love what you do for our community.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I do it with all of you. And today is your turn to help us and teach us. You started to tell me just a tiny bit, and I knew there was tons there to dig into about your, come to Jesus moment with a sales tax audit.
It was. Yes.
I just thought that this would be such a great topic to talk about because I didn't even, once you told it to me, I didn't even ask you what happened. I was just like, oh, no. Don't even tell me. I want to learn on air. But my brain immediately went to, you couldn't have been working without a CPA, right? I mean.
Oh, I was working with a CPA. That did not affect any of the trauma that happened to me.
All right. So take it apart for us. When did this happen? Well, you're 16 years in business as we're recording. When did this happen in your business? And what was the first time that you knew you had trouble on the horizon?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So I'm going to take you kind of far back. So it was 2010. So at that point, I'm about, I'm like 6 years into my business, but I want to say about 2 of those years were kind of light. So maybe like a solid 4 years, which is legit. I'm past my 5-year mark, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I get a letter in the mail, and it's one of those letters from, State Board of Equalization that you're like, oh crap, what I do wrong now? And there's probably a fee that I paid late or something. So let me open this up. And it says, you have been selected for a sales tax audit. And I have thought, oh, okay, I don't even know what that means, but sure. And actually, you know what? I'm going to take the story back a little bit further because I think this will be relatable to some of the listeners. When I opened my business, and I'm talking about the paperwork portion of it, when you go to the registrar's office in the city,
mm-hmm.
it was actually for a class assignment when I was in my final quarter in college. And they said, go through the process of opening a business just so you understand what it is. So, just like many designers, I kind of like picked the acronym of my name, went to the city, and I was like, here's my paperwork. Let me open a business. And it was a DBA at the time. And the lady at the counter said, oh, I see that you're opening a design business. You have to go also to the State Board of Equalization and get a resale certificate. And I was like, sure, no problem. You tell me to do that. I follow instructions. And I went and did that, not really knowing. I'll be totally honest with you, not really knowing what the hell that meant.
Right.
I just got the paperwork that they told me to get. Great. I continue on, graduated school, started doing some business, doing a little more. And like I said, now we're sort of sped up to this time where I get this letter in the mail.
Can I ask you a question here, though? Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you doing business when you eventually open business under the DBA and the legal name that you set up when you were just finishing your studies?
So yes, I was doing business under the original name. I went and opened a business bank account. And as I was collecting money from clients, I was depositing in there. So that part I was doing legit, let's say.
Right.
The unfortunate part was I wasn't clear on what I wasn't doing legit. And there's this, famous quote, and I don't know who said it, but it's like, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And it's so true. So unfortunately, I didn't know what I didn't know. And I did have a CPA at the time that they weren't monthly reconciling my books. They were kind of just saying like, send me stuff as you have it. Let's do your annual stuff at the end of the year. And I just thought that was normal. But if I look back at it in hindsight, I will say there was so much of this weird, fuzzy, like, am I doing this right? Am I not? But when you're busy and you're trying to hustle and build a business, you're kind of like, well, money's coming in and like, I'm not broke as a joke. So let's just keep this rolling because something's working kind of thing.
Right. I get it. The hundreds of business owners I've talked to across my entire career, not just associated with the podcast, that is such a typical experience.
Yeah. And there isn't a strong sense of how do you set up a business and how do you run it from a books standpoint that's discussed. I mean, we all know this, like it's not taught in school, it's not their job, whatever. There's so many reasons as to why this happens. But so now we're at the point that I get this letter and right away I call the CPA and I'm like, what is this? What do I have to do? And so she tells me, collect every document and thing that you have let's set up an appointment in my office. Let's review what you've got. And I'm like, what I've got? What do you mean what I've got? Like, you've got what I've got. Like, what on earth does that mean? And so, we have these series of meetings, and I'm kind of like dumping off receipts at her place and printing things from internet receipts. And I'm trying to like gather what I think that she wants to culminate as this like report she's going to hand into the State Board of Equalization. And so I have her set up the meeting with the auditor and submit my stuff, because to be honest, I don't know what I'm looking at and I don't want to say the wrong thing. And she conducts this meeting, and the auditors are like, you're missing tons of sales tax, lady. Like tons. And the audit period is a 3-year period. It was for 2007, 8, and 9. And if your books aren't straight, and also you don't even know how you're producing your books and how you're invoicing anyway, your memory starts to go to like, how did I charge that client for that sofa back in 2007?
Right.
Like, what did I do? And so she had this collection of papers that she submitted. They took months and months to review it because it was such a hot mess. And she tried to cobble together the resemblance of some kind of business form. And they, at the end, put it through their filter system. And they were like, okay, clearly you don't collect sales tax properly. You've been collecting and selling and, selling furniture and collecting money and all this kind of stuff. You owe us, this huge amount of money. This is what we've calculated. We've put together the numbers, and this is where we're at. And at this point, I was, I think, about 6 months pregnant with my first child. And I was like, I don't have that money. Like, I don't have even near that amount of money to be paying.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And so I requested an appointment with the State Board of Equalization's superior manager. And I was like, we need to talk about this, because how did you guys come to this number when I don't even know how I got to this number?
Right. That's a good question.
Like where did this number birth itself out of thin air? And so, nervous as hell, I took my husband with me, and I was like, listen. And I thought I would like play the card of I'm pregnant, please help me. That didn't help at all.
That's a little silly, sure. Come on.
Yeah, I know. But I was like, I'm trying anything. I was like, this amount of money I do not have. And so they were like, listen, you have this random collection of paperwork. You have spreadsheets that you've made in Excel of how you show your clients a budget. You have contracts where you have payment schedules in them, but those contracts are not all reflected in invoices. Some things you invoiced, some things you didn't, some things you invoiced with sales tax, some things you didn't. And it was, I'm telling you, when I say it was a hot mess, that's putting it lightly. It's putting it lightly, because things were moving at such a quick pace where I'd meet a client, I put together a contract. I was like, I knew that part. I have a contract.
Right.
But sometimes I would give a client a contract and they were so excited. They'd give me a check right then and there. And I would just go and deposit the check in the bank. But I would never do the extra step of making an invoice for that initial. Yes.
Holy moly.
Yes. And it's not like I missed a day in design school where they taught that. It's not like it was taught anywhere, but it's business 101. And I just, as naive as it sounds, I just didn't have the accounting background to know the simplest of things. And I know I'm not the only one out there.
Oh, of course not. No.
For sure. But it is what it is. Like, that's what happened. I don't know if you want to call it sloppiness or naivete or what, but I just was doing things wrong. I was doing things like I would create a really detailed Excel spreadsheet for clients to understand an overall budget. And I would have things in it with the furniture and drapery and all kinds of stuff. And then I would say, okay, you've approved all of this, just give me like 50% of it so I can start placing orders. And let's say I made an invoice for that, but on that invoice, I wasn't accurately collecting the sales tax towards that 50% deposit, and I would collect that sales tax later. And it was just a hodgepodge of a mess.
Whoa.
So they looked at this and they said, we don't even know how we're going to calculate this number. But what they did was they took my overall design fee amount that I had collected over that 3-year period, and they just said, we're going to take 10% of that. And I was like, why would you do that?
Right.
And they said, little girl, basically, did you know that there's a portion of your design fee that is taxable? And I almost fell over in my chair, and I thought I had a miscarriage, because I was like, I don't know what you're talking about right now.
Whoa.
And it stopped me in my tracks, because never had I ever heard that a portion of the design fee was taxable labor in their eyes.
Now,
Never.
is that unique to California? I mean, we must be talking about, I mean, there must be differences state to state, obviously, correct?
There are differences state to state, but I have friends in Texas who have the same thing. I have friends in New York who have the same thing. So I want to venture a guess that there is something like this, almost in every state, if not every state. Obviously, I'm not a professional that works in every single state,
Sure.
but I'm bringing it up because
you got to ask.
You got to ask, and it's something that is actually written out in the State Board of Equalization's handbooks, and they have one for every specific every specific business type, and they have a little pamphlet explaining if your business is taxable or not. And so then I continued to sort of berate them with a million questions about what on earth are they talking about. And the bottom line was this: if we have any form of business that results in the sale of a tangible good, that labor, that business, even if it was just a consultation, is taxable time.
Wow.
Now I'm going to say that again, because it took me about 2 years to let this soak in. If you're conducting a consultation and that consultation results in the sale of a taxable item, a tangible item, that consultation is taxable time.
Whoa.
So what that means is, when you're writing your invoices, and let's say you say something like shopping at the design center with client for living room furniture. And a month later, you're invoicing for, sofas and things that you bought at the design center. That original consultation, 2 hours or 3 hours that you invoiced for, in their eyes is considered taxable time, because it later resulted in the sale of a tangible item.
Whoa. Yes. And so when you go around the country, Shirry, and you talk to other designers, whether it's publicly on a panel or informally with your friends, that's like the big, are you kidding me moment.
Oh, that's when everyone goes silent and they all start sweating and they're like, I got to go back and look at my books.
I'm laughing, but there's not one darn thing funny about it. Like, there's not one darn thing funny. It is terrifying.
It was terrifying. And so the way that the law is written in their eyes about this very specific topic is that they require a minimum of 10% of your design fees to be taxable if the work that you did resulted in selling your client's items. So that's why over the 3-year audit period, they just tagged on, you owe us 10% of everything you charged clients in this period.
And the thing is, what my brain is going to is, did they also, like, you did have X amount of records of the items that you sold. So those are taxable, like we understand that they're taxable. So you had this 10% to all your design fees, but you must have had another whammy of all the stuff that they found that they decided that you probably hadn't pushed through the taxes.
Oh, I sure did. Sure did. And part of it was, there's other little things that I learned, like, for example, when I go out and buy accessories and I'm going to a retail store, I actually get credit for that sales tax. And I need to submit that every time I do a quarterly report and I submit my sales tax return, which I wasn't even I wasn't getting credit for. There were so many things that I just blindly did not know.
Well, okay. So in that regard, what you're saying is, if you go and buy retail and pay the sales tax and then you sell it to your client, you have to file for credit on that sales tax. But otherwise, there's retailers that you can set up and have your tax ID so you don't pay the tax to begin with there.
That's exactly right.
Right.
Yep.
And then you're not submitting for a credit. Then you're having to remember, like, if you buy something at, Williams and Sonoma, like, you could have a designer trade account, you buy it, you don't pay sales tax, but then when you sell it, you have to pay the sales tax.
That's exactly right.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yep,
But
exactly.
maybe you don't bother with a one-off boutique that you find a one-off item and you just pay the sales tax, because you're not going to sit there in the middle of everything and set up a trade account with a one-off boutique.
That's exactly right. But, after going through this process and learning what I learned, and I will say the amount was high, and I'm happy to share the amount with you. It doesn't even matter. I guess it's irrelevant. But it was so eye-opening. I call it my school fee, because I learned more going through that audit than I did, in 3 years of college to get a design degree, because it turned my business around.
How much was it, Shirry?
It was $43,000.
Wow.
And for someone who, I'm still sort of in the early stages of my business, I did not have that money. I didn't even collect it. And so I had this sort of perplexed idea of, well, do I go back to my client from 3 years ago to be like, hi, client, I filled your home with furniture and I totally forgot to collect the sales tax. Could I have that money now? Or, do I sort of eat it and, work my ass off and try to make the money and pay it off? I mean, it's not my client's fault, really.
No.
Were they supposed to pay it at the time? Yeah. Did I not collect it? Yeah. So
yeah, you didn't go back and ask the clients.
No,
right?
God, no. I was not about to do that.
There's certain things, we certainly have at Window Works have found an invoice back in the day. And I was talking about it in one podcast, I don't know, a year or so ago, how before, like every single system that we have that's related to money in particular, but actually everything, we start with a system at Window Works, and the system gets revised and refined every time the system breaks. And
right.
So we started with a certain system for collecting money from our customers back when we opened. And then every single time we found something that we did wrong, we would institute a new part of a system. And we ultimately ended up with, the red pen system at Window Works. And I've talked about it in my book. I've talked about it on the podcast and so forth. But in the beginning, before there was computers and the way to track things for us, we would my husband would literally do every single piece of paper, look at every single invoice, audit every January. And when I tell you, for a business like ours, we can have 30 to 100 clients a month. You know what I'm saying? It's like a much faster turnaround. And every single January, he would come back from, the Christmas vacation, and he would just literally pull out every single invoice and look at it. Did we collect the deposit? Did we collect the balance? Did we collect the deposit? Did we collect the balance?
Oh, my
It was crazy. And until we instituted one layer of the system, the second layer of the system, and finally, I guess as we were probably as late as 7 or 8 years in business, that we ended up with the levels of the system that we have and we still use to this day. Every year in that audit, he would find 10, 12, 14, 15 people that during the course of the year, we had never collected either the deposit or the balance due. And he would call every single one of them. I'm sorry, but that's different than we, quote unquote, negligently didn't collect your sales tax, right? So it's a little different. It is different. Okay. So, all right. I have 1,000 questions in here.
Okay.
First of all, I just have to go back to the one of the big glaring, obviously, lessons that you learned is collecting money and not making an invoice. And if anybody on my Window Works team hears this episode, they are going to look at Vinny and say, you're a genius. Because I don't care if we are going to do free window treatments for one of our kids. He's like, where's the Window Works invoice? Write it on an invoice. And, in the beginning, we all thought he was nuts. I mean, this is 39 years now doing business alongside of this man. But in the beginning, I'm like, my mom just needs a mini blind for her laundry room. Are you kidding me? I need to do an invoice. He's like, put it on an invoice. Okay. And so it doesn't matter what it is. If a customer gets free service, if it's free service not attached to a previous order, it gets an invoice. If it's $10, it gets an invoice. We will
exactly.
And we're all like, we all have always looked at him like, all right, lunatic man. But he has an accounting degree. Okay. So
I'm telling you.
Right. So I want to just say that again out loud, that was an aha lesson for you, that you would sometimes take a payment from a client, put it in your bank account, and not necessarily go back and create the invoice for it. So that's huge, right?
I thought I had a contract. My contract has it in writing.
Right.
And that's my document.
Exactly. Now, the couple of other things that I want to understand in this big, huge, come to Jesus lesson for you, Shirry, is there's personal things I want to ask in your own personal accountability, but I can't overlook the CPA, like asleep at the wheel.
I know. Tell me about it.
Come on. What
Tell
was
me about
her? Here's the thing. If you say to me, and she felt so horrible and she really helped me through the whole aftermath and blah, 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 I might be able to have her just tiny little bit of redemption in my mind. But if she pulled
no redemption.
if she pulled the, hey, I did what I'm supposed to do, I'm going to lose it.
She sure did. She sure did. She was like, I emailed you every quarter and just said, send me what you got for sales tax, and you sent me what you sent, and that was it. What was I supposed to do? And I was like, I'm going to murder you.
Oh,
did you want to tell me I'm not doing anything right?
See, you know what I'm saying about that? Like, this is the thing. This is why I adore Peter Lang.
Yes.
That I sing his praises, and any other accountant out there that does a good job. It's just that. But the point is that you cannot just assume because they're a professional. Like my husband says, somebody had to graduate at the bottom of their class. It doesn't mean they're good at it.
I mean, yeah.
Or that they care about it, right?
Right.
Phoning it in. I hate phone it in people. I hate them more than anything. And to it's one thing to phone it in. It's you don't, as any professional, phone it in and not know you're not phoning it in. Like you just, you know that you are. Then when somebody gets caught in the crosshairs to this extreme level, $43,000 at the beginning of their career, and to have to just come up with that money, then to know that in the back of your mind you were phoning it in, and not to just come clean and say, hey, going forward, I'm going to make these changes, not just with your firm, but with all the firms I deal with. I can see my part in this, right?
Right. Oh, I wish. Wouldn't that have been beautiful? But no.
Gross.
It's not at all how it happened.
Oh, no. I mean, it wouldn't have helped you, but it just restore humanity, right?
Yes, please, a little something.
Okay. So now, one of the things that I was curious about is in the execution of your daily business to that point. So, Shirry, you have situations. Now, we uncover. We know that we don't even know that we're supposed to be collecting on design fees, right? We don't even know. That's not even on our radar. That's what you don't know category.
Yes.
But when you did sell a sofa, were you at least meticulously collecting on every item sold? Or there you were also not necessarily doing it on every item? And if you weren't, was it, I know I'm not doing it, or was it just not organized that you didn't see that you weren't doing it?
So that's an interesting question, because that part I was super meticulous about, because I had this lovely document that I made in Excel, and I was like, I got my spreadsheet, and I was tracking every single item. And I was very meticulous to the point of every accessory was being charged. And that's why it was so delusional to a certain extent, because I was like, there's money in the bank. I am profitable. Yes. Kind of what's going on. So I knew that I was making money off of the things that I was selling. But it was even in that case, it was wishy-washy, because now I have a system where I have a single rate that I charge above all of my items. So it's not like the sofa is a 10% markup, but the artwork is 40% markup or whatever. No, it's the same across the board as one flat procurement percentage for everything. So that way it doesn't get mixed up. It's just across the board. And that's what I wasn't doing before. So on a sofa, I might make less money, percentage money than I would on some other items like chairs or coffee tables or whatever. And that's kind of what was messy. But I did collect on everything.
So what you're saying is, before you had a single rate, it wasn't that you didn't collect it. It just made it more difficult to collect it in an orderly fashion.
Yes.
And I get that. I mean, we're not talking to a community of, accountants and Excel spreadsheet gurus.
Right.
We're talking to us. We get that. It's like, 3% there, 8% there, 10% there. That's crazy. My head is spinning. Let's just walk away.
Yeah.
Right?
And, I remember having these thoughts before the audit happened, like, oh, I wish there was an easier way or a simpler way, or like something isn't clear, but, the clients aren't saying much and they're paying and things are kind of working. And then again, busy life, day to day, you're meeting with clients. You got so much to do. You're designing and you got to handle your books and whatever. And just like time kept going on and nothing was really breaking. Like I'm saying, there was money in the bank.
Right.
And it just, nothing really made me put on the brakes to look at what it was. But I do know that I was always thinking to myself, like, there's some gray areas here. Like something isn't purely clear. And I didn't know how to put my finger on it. Well, the audit put my finger on it, and now I knew.
Right. Well, and it's a funny thing because to a lesser degree, I experienced this year with LuAnn Inc. So for the last 4 years until January, the podcast lived under the umbrella of WindowWorks as a business, right? So it was just considered marketing for WindowWorks, and all of the revenue and expenses all went through WindowWorks. It was marketing expense and blah, 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 right? And so that was fine. And that was awesome because I have the VIN man there who does everything, okay?
Exactly.
And so, but then we decided this year it was getting a little bit too, it was getting silly. It needed to be its own business. And so last quarter of 2019, we decided we would break it off, make it its own business, make it its own entity. Of course, I have JV Lieberman set me up as my own entity. And I give a thought to calling Peter Lang. I really do. But guess what? It's actually not an interior design business. So I don't really need to go to Peter in my mind, I'm thinking. And we have had our same accountant for WindowWorks for 39 years. He and my husband have been friends since high school. And the cool thing for me is that his son was now part of the business, and his son was in his 30s. So it wasn't like, oh, why would I start with an accountant who's going to retire in 3 or 4 years, right? And his son and I have a great rapport, and I meet him 2 or 3 times in the fall. I'm going to set this up, and we're going to break this up. And, he's young, and he's with it, and he gets it, and we're all copacetic. So we incorporate, and I am under the accountancy of this firm. And here we are, COVID-19, and we're in quarantine, and it's like the first or second week of April. We've only been in quarantine for 10 days, but I got my husband's eyeballs in the house with me a lot longer for the day than I did the week before. So at one point, we're having a conversation, and I said, do I have quarterly taxes due? And he's like, what? And I said, well, like sales tax and stuff. And he just looks at me and he says, well, they're due April 15th. And I'm like, well, don't you think that, XYZ's office would have said something to me like this, right? And so he says, well, what about payroll taxes? I'm like, no. I get the payroll taxes covered. That's all covered. Like my mom is my bookkeeper. This is what she's done for many years. And I'm like, nope, she's got that set up. That's all covered. And I go, but what about sales tax? And he's like, is what you do taxable? I'm like, I have no idea. Like this, right?
Right.
So this is like one of those, what you talk about, Willis moments. I'm like, sorry.
Right.
So, and of course, like you said, you're just going at the speed of light. And I think I'm with an accountant that's been our accountant for 40 years. Like, I don't think I'm not on the radar. And so, I call him. I'm like, buddy, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh, yeah, I'm sure everything's fine. He goes, tell me a little bit more about you do again. I'm like, oh
my goodness.
No, you did not just say that, okay? Because this is the father, not the son, right? And so I tell him about it. He's like, no, he goes, there isn't anything that you do that's sales taxable. I'm like, okay. So, but I got to call 2 other people. I got to call Nicole Heimer and someone else because I'm like, you guys got to do the business. She's like, nope, I agree with them according to my account. Blah. Okay, great. So now, though, I said to him, do you have me formally enrolled in your company? And he's like, oh, I'm sure we do. And I'm like saying to myself, yeah, and I'm sure you do. Like, it. You can hear it.
Right.
And so I said to him, okay, you're sure you do. I'm telling you, you need to be very sure of it. And the reason that I'm sharing this story is because it took, and I love these people. They have taken WindowWorks through many audits and everything, and I am not. But my point in it is that you must speak up. Right? To your point, you were feeling fuzzy, you were busy, you were feeling like I'm making money, but that fuzzy feeling you suppressed, right? You're just like,
yes,
I've got an accountant and I'm feeling fuzzy, but this is probably okay. And I don't know everything there is to know about finances, but I know that I will not feel fuzzy and let it go, right? So that's like 2 days later, I'm like, yes, the woman at your office, she didn't call. What's happening? I just called my mother and I said, if you don't see an email by this person, it's Tuesday. I spoke to him on Monday. I'm calling him tomorrow. If you don't see something by next Monday, you're on it. Monday, she's like, should I really bother him then? Yes, ma'am, you should. And so the same thing. And finally, my mom stayed on them and got hooked up with the woman in charge of, divvying out the accounts and putting an accountant in charge. And literally went through the whole thing. But it was, I had to, even me, a longtime client, had to say, hand up over here. What are you doing? Right?
No, and you have to get comfortable with asking questions. And even you, like you just said, you're like, am I bothering them or not? Bother them.
Yes, no.
That's what they're there for.
That's right.
Ask the questions, because until you feel clear, keep asking.
Mm-hmm.
You have to.
Well, because the other thing, too, is what I always recognize is, that woman who he charged with reaching out and getting in touch with us and getting me formally onboarded.
Yeah.
She is busy, too. She's just like when, as an interior designer, you get the phone call that says, oh, did we check the grout? The guy's coming on Thursday to do the tile. And you think to yourself, my God, did anybody check the grout color? I have no idea. Yeah. But, you have to stop the wheels and do it. But sometimes you don't. Sometimes you say, I'll have to do that. And then it doesn't get done. And then the phone call comes. It says, hey, I'm here. There's no grout. What are we doing? And you're like, son of a gun. Right. And so, but the thing is, this is your money. You see, this is your money. This is your business.
Exactly. I'm sure everyone else, well, not everyone, but a lot of people feel this way. You kind of avoid these meetings with your accountant like the plague. And you're like, please just make this not painful and let's get this over with. You kind of don't want to go to these meetings, but they are the most important thing in your business if you're running a business.
And I'm going to guarantee that I'm going to ask you this question, and I know what the answer is going to be. Once you literally committed, Shirry, to getting involved and understanding and having it locked down. Tell me about the other side of that.
Oh, it went on lockdown. Let me tell you, there was like a bazillion questions besides the fact that I fired that accountant.
Yeah.
Went back to my office. I mean, I think I took about 2 months or so to stop everything and reorganize how I'm going to contract, how I'm going to have my books, how I'm going to collect money, the tracking of that money, and making sure that I was very clear about what was taxable and what was not, because I was never going to put myself in this position ever again to not be clear and not understand.
Right. And once you do that, it's like you wake up every morning, instead of afraid of your accountant in your books, you're like, hallelujah, right?
Oh, yes. There's so much clarity. I mean, with clarity comes peace and quiet in your business. I can't even explain the difference. But it was night and day. Right. It was night and day. And all of a sudden, my business that was profitable became like powerhouse profitable, because I knew exactly what I was doing. The design part, once you've kind of got that down, like you got your design thing down, that's not a problem. But running the business is 80% of it, if not more. That's the real meat of what we do on a day-to-day basis, is running the business. Design, if not 20%, might only be like 10% of it, to be honest.
I love it. It's just so, it's no different than when you get the design end of your business locked down and systemized. Right. Your confidence soars and you can execute the projects better. But when it's the same aha revelation and the same reward when you commit to getting the finance side of your business locked down too, with complete clarity for yourself, right?
It's so true. It's so true. And I feel like every time something does come up, and you as a business owner, you have to be open to change all the time. But just like you said earlier, we are constantly looking at our system to see, okay, on this project, this was a little bit weird and funky. How do we make it better the next time? And we're constantly looking at ways to make it smoother, more streamlined, more sense for us, more sense for the client. You have to.
And so let's talk about that a little bit, the steps that our colleagues can take. So one of the first things is, you said a while ago, is go to your State Board of Equalization handbook and really understand what the criteria and the laws and the things are that are necessary for your individual state. So I'm assuming that's on a .gov site somewhere, right?
It is. It's on a .gov. Like in California, when I go on their website, there's a list of over 150 different types of businesses, and there is one specific for designers and decorators. You click on that. It's about a 9-page printout on a PDF, and it very detailed, explains how you're supposed to charge sales tax on a tangible item, how you're supposed to charge sales tax and show it on your invoice if it's only a labor invoice for your consultation time, and what their minimums are. For example, one of the other things that makes me kind of lose my mind sometimes is when I hear other designers tell their clients, I'm just going to give you my trade discount. Like, no, honey, you're actually not allowed to do that when you have a resale certificate. You have that license for a reason.
And there's
actually a minimum. Yeah. And there's actually a minimum that you have to charge as a markup or whatever you want to call it to your client in order to maintain that license. Wow. You cannot go to the design center and give your client the same price that you get. You're making our entire industry dysfunctional by that.
I love it. See, because you know what's so funny is at LuAnn Live, I lost my mind on stage over this conversation. Like I literally did.
Girl, I know. Tell me about it.
Because you see, the thing is, and this goes into a whole different thing, and I want to come back to the action items that our colleagues have to take. But this is exactly what I said. I said, the wholesale, whether it's designer pricing at 10 or 15 or 20% off or stocking dealer pricing at 40, 50, 60, whatever level you are at in your business, it was not designed to give your clients a discount. It was designed to create loyalty from you to that brand and give you an opportunity to be in business, right? Yes. Like when the restaurateur goes to the fishmonger and he buys fish, buys a piece of fish for, 25 cents a pound, and it comes out to you on your plate for like $25. He's not saying, hey, here's my fishmonger discount. Like, what the heck, man?
Exactly.
Designers are like one of the few, I don't know any other industry that gives away their hard-earned
I'm
markup.
Telling you, and
it's
I don't
beyond
know why
comprehension.
It is beyond comprehension. Not only is it a requirement in order to hold that license, but you're just shooting this entire industry in the foot by doing that.
Yes.
And the truth is, when I went back and I changed all these processes, my business was so much more profitable from the merchandise that I was selling compared to the design fees. And part of that is because I was now charging the right markup or the right procurement amount, where before I wasn't. But there's not a reason in my mind that could justify why you would pass on a trade discount to your client. Why even utter those words?
I know.
Because that makes clients go, when we go to our consultation, they go, do you pass on your trade discount? It's like a hard no.
Right.
No. And where did you hear that from?
Right. And guess where they heard it from? All the other designers in the world. Like, I don't understand.
Yes. It makes me rip my hair out.
Shirry, I'm with you because I really, truly don't understand it. And I know that there are well-experienced, seasoned designers that are buying at stocking dealer. And so maybe they're not selling at retail, and they'll tell you that when I buy at stocking dealer and I mark it up 35 or 40%, the client still gets a discount off of retail.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
Okay. I have to say, personally, I still don't get that, but at least I'm okay with it. Right? Like,
it's better than zero.
Right. That's my thing. It's like we're not going to, have one woman who's not even interior designer change your entire industry by saying, I think that's silly. I get that.
Right.
But I do think it's silly. There isn't anything else we do in this world that we ask whoever we're doing business with what their net cost is and how much are we going to save off of retail on that net cost.
Exactly.
Are we going to get your savings? And I'm a broken record about it, and it is absurd. Okay.
Isn't it?
It is. It is absolutely patently absurd. But the point is that what you're also pointing out is that it's, at least in California, it's actually illegal.
Yes, exactly.
That's news. I bet that's news to a lot of people.
Oh, I'm sure it is, because it was news for me. But if you carry that resale license, which in order to, buy from the design centers or wherever, you kind of have to have that. As long as you're reselling, you have to charge a minimum of 10%. That's their determination of what is required at the minimum.
Yeah.
Which, again, isn't even profitable. Like, why would you only charge 10%?
Yes.
That's a whole other story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, okay. So we go back to our action item. So we're going to get download for our state, go to our government.org, gov.org state and find this handbook of equalization. Is that what it's called? The equalization. Okay.
Yes.
Number one. Number two, you mentioned in there that you went to the same percentage on all items. Talk to us a little bit about the before and after. What were you doing and what do you do now that makes it easier for you to execute?
So before, I would look at the spreadsheet that I was making and I was kind of like, well, this is a high ticket item. I'll only charge them like 10%. And this thing, I get a really good price on that. Like the artwork, I'll charge them 50%. Or, I was just sort of hand doing it based on feelings. And to be honest, some of it, I probably only made like 5% or 7% or something random. So now, and it makes it so easy in my office, my employees just put in what our cost is. At the bottom, if it's a residential project, it's 35% across the board, no matter what. I don't care if that takes it above MSRP or not or whatever. It's just 35% above whatever our cost is. Bottom line. That's it.
So that's interesting. Now, okay, so tell us a little bit about the conversation with your clients in that.
So the clients always approach it in a different way. Some of them come to us and they say, are you marking up? And I say, no, I don't do a markup. I have a procurement fee because there's a procurement section, a phase in my design contract, which, by the way, is taxable for my time. So I explained to them the whole story. And some of them, I really even go into detail about the audit and everything. And I explained to them, I am required to charge money. I explained to them that part of it is taxable labor for whatever I'm specifying. And I go through all of it. And so I explained to them, there's a service. It is called procurement. There is work that needs to be done to get that item from a warehouse or wherever it's being made to your home finished. And that's the fee that you're being charged.
Okay.
Bye.
I love it. I love it. I have to tell you, I have to remind everybody in episode number 496, Sally Williams said the same thing. She grew her business 40% from 2018 to 2019 to reach almost $1 million in gross revenue in 40% growth that resulted in 1 million gross revenue. Okay. So that's big growth. That's not like I went from 10,000 a year to 12,000 a year, right?
No.
And she did two things. She went back to hourly fee for her because she found for her personally that she would rather track it diligently and look at somebody in the eyeballs and said, I did 20 hours, 10 hours, 2 hours, whatever. That was her personal way. And she went to, and I want to say, I believe it was 35% also, a straight 35% on every single item, exactly as you said, whether she bought it at 10% under, 60% under, or she bought it at retail. She charged her client 35% up. And that's what you're saying. The same with you. So let me clarify just to get in the weeds. So you are walking at, some she street in Los Angeles, having a great time, having a gelato with your husband and your kid. Right. And you see in an art store, an art dealer, art gallery, a beautiful piece of art that you feel will be amazing for a client's project. Your client can walk in and buy that at the same price that you can. But if you buy it for your client and you pay and you don't get a discount, you don't get a designer trade price at that gallery. If you pay $1,000 at that gallery, you're going to charge them $1,000 plus 35%, right?
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, see, love it. Love it. Yep. Love it. Love it. Love
because
it.
Because it's a service.
Right.
I know that some people live in the Amazon world and they think you're just clicking buttons, whatever. No.
Right.
We're clicking, we're tracking, we're making sure it's right, we're handling when it's wrong. There's so much to it. I don't have to explain that to the designers. They know, but it's a service. That's why I don't sell it as it's a markup. It's not a markup.
Now, let me ask you another question because I'm really going to pick it apart because I'm thinking about the designer who is, that rising designer that's coming up and just, getting in these waters. Okay. So in the example I used, you are having a nice afternoon with your family, so you're not actually working, you're not actually on the design clock, but you see it, you snap a picture of it, you then go to your client and present it, and they buy it, and you go back and buy it, and you mark it up. What happens if, because I can hear the designer saying to me, Right. But LuAnn, more likely what's going to happen is I am actively hunting for artwork. I'm on the clock on my design hours. And so therefore I can't mark something up 35%. I don't feel right doing it because I've charged them, say, 2 hours to find that piece of art that I'm now going to buy at retail because it is a one of a kind, and it's not like, I'm not going into Bob's Big Boy to buy furniture. I'm going to an art gallery, one of a kind. So walk me through that scenario, Shirry.
Yes. And I love this question because for me, it's very clear.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you are hunting and hunting and hunting, and you're going to charge your client, let's just assume you charge hourly. I actually don't. I do flat fees, but let's just assume you charge hourly.
Mm-hmm.
There's an invoice associated for the hunting. Now, when you were hunting, you don't know that your client would have approved that or not. You love it and you know that it's right, but you hunted, let's say, for an hour and a half, and you presented it. That hunting ended at presentation. That hunting could have stopped and they could have said, are you crazy? I'm not buying that. Or it could have moved on to procurement. You still have to charge that hunting fee, whether they approved it or not, because that's the work that you've been hired to do. When it goes into procurement, which is a whole other set of skills, meaning calling them, making sure it's wrapped correctly, transported correctly, delivered correctly, hung correctly, is the part that you're charging for the 35% of procurement.
I love it. I love it.
Like it's very clean.
That's right. And the thing is often is that a designer just needs that language, needs that picking of apart the nuance between the two activities. Because I have to say, in the conversations I've had, that's the biggest pushback I get.
Yes.
Oh, no, if I charge them for the hourly fee to find it, I can't, charge them for that too. And I love the way you described it, that it's two separate activities. It's ordering a steak and ordering potatoes. If you want them both, you have to pay for them both.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Why wouldn't you?
Right. I think you would. Okay.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay. So you go to a straight 35% no matter what, no matter if you find a one-off unique item at a place, or you are buying at a 10% off because that particular vendor, you only have designer trade pricing, and whether you have 60% off because you might enjoy stocking dealer pricing at a different vendor, whatever your different, vendors are, 35. Love it. And you tell your client that is the fee for procurement.
Yes, and they sign off and initial it on my contract.
Love it. Okay.
There's even an additional line item that says, if you're going to buy something on your own, like I can't stop them from looking at their phone and finding stuff or shopping or whatever, we are not going to be handling it, and you can deal with it. Because in the past, before I implemented this, clients would be like, oh, I ordered this thing. Can you just kind of watch over it and track it with all the other stuff you're doing? No, if you ordered it, go have a party, enjoy tracking it and dealing with it when it's gone wrong.
I'm sorry to laugh so hard.
So enjoy that party on your own.
The nerve, right? The nerve.
I mean, no, I'm not going to do that. No.
That's right. It's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay. But that is what happens. And so,
so
let's pick that apart a little bit, because at this stage of your career, to what level will you let that seep into a project? In other words, let's say that you say you have it in your contract, and if you happen to be, surfing Pinterest and you want to order something, that's on you. And I love that. Have your own little ordering party and receiving and tracking party. So you have it in there in the contract. Yeah. Have you ever had this situation? Okay, so the one person does the same thing. They're out having a gelato and they see this amazing item and they're like, I have to have it. It would be perfect. And so great, order it. But have you ever had this situation where, and probably more when you were rising rather than seasoned, right? When it's harder to keep the boundaries locked down, where it became one item and then 3 items and then 4 items. And then all of a sudden here you are with a design plan, and say you've got the whole room specified and those sofas and the rugs. And it's like, oh, this is the rug I found. I love it. Here it is. Oh, this is the lamp I found. Here it is. And now you're looking at this hodgepodge and you're saying, this isn't cohesive with the things I'm doing. Have you ever had that situation, Shirry?
You're right. In the past several years, no. Earlier I did.
Right.
And two things happened. I had to start using the word no, which was a whole other revelation in my business of like, no client, no. And then I would have these other conversations with them saying like, listen, this is becoming a hodgepodge. You can either pay more design fees for me to pick this apart again and re-put it together because you're looking at things out in the world and I'm picking things and it's kind of a disaster and I'm not feeling comfortable. Or you're just going to go with my recommendations. Now, that's on the table. You pick how you want to do, but I'm not going to work for free.
Okay. See, I love that. That's actionable. I can understand that. As a consumer, you know me, Shirry, I always think, well, if they said that to me and I'm not a designer and I'm a consumer, what would I think? That makes logical sense. I don't care if I am doing it as a consumer from all good intentions. I've got time and money, and I've got a little bit of the taste bone in me. Like I might have just some slice of DNA as a tastemaker, right? And so I'm thinking to myself, I'm just being super helpful because, this is an amazing rug, and Shirry didn't find it, and I did, and we're like a team here. Aren't we just so great? But the thing is, I am not part of your team. I have hired you. And I love that way of coming back to me and saying, and because what I'm always looking for is the language that a seasoned designer uses is the same, but it has a different level of finality and confidence and conviction to it that you use when you're up and whether you're a baby designer or a rising designer, right? We want to teach the baby and the rising designer the language because it works, but if it doesn't feel right, if it doesn't make sense to them yet, then it's hard to do it just because Shirry says to do it. So when you say to me, okay, Mrs. Client, this is awesome. One item, 2 items, 3 items, but now you're creating a situation where I must keep going back to my drawing board and making sure what you keep buying works in the design plan. You're going to get design hours for that. Understand that. Yes, and if you want to keep paying those, and I understand our inside voice is, we don't want her to keep doing it. We don't really want to do the design hours, whether we're getting paid for it or not. It's a pain. And I can imagine going back to the drawing board every 20, minutes. It's got to be nerve-wracking. However, we will charge you for it and we will keep doing it. And therefore, maybe it will wake you up that this is why you called me in the first place. This is what I do. Please go do what you do. Right?
Exactly. And there's parts of it that they won't understand or just refuse to kind of see, which I put myself as much as often as I can into the client's shoes and try to think how they think. But they are not understanding that the rug that I pick, let's say, it's not just the coloring or the design of the rug. It's lead time, its size, its scale. How do you clean it? Does it make sense with the sofa and the drapes? There's so much that goes into every decision that's made that they're not thinking. They're just like, ooh, I like it. It's pretty. Well, that might change the complete plan of the whole room.
Well, and I love that. You know what, Shirry, that's more ammunition, and that's such a horrible word. That's more information, okay? That's more information that every level interior designer should remember is part of that conversation in steering a client who has gone off the reservation, is exactly that. It's not just, yes, Mrs. Client, you have great taste, and I recognize and look at what you just selected. It fits all the aesthetic criteria. But as your designer, I'm taking into so many other things into account, which include, and those deliverables are awesome, tangible things. Again, as a consumer, I could say, oh, right. So maybe this is a 12-week lead time and everything else is coming in 6 weeks. So we can't even deliver everything because the soup rug goes under everything.
Yes, exactly.
Or I did say to her, I had 3 kids and a dog, and I don't even know if I can have all that with a viscose rug, right? It's like,
exactly.
Right. What do I know about it? The catalog says it'll be fine.
Right. Exactly.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. So get the handbook. Think very seriously about coming up with a single rate for what you add to every single item as a procurement fee, and understand the difference between design and procurement in your mind so that you can execute it, have the conversation confidently. Are there any other specific steps that you took, Shirry, after? Okay, go ahead.
One other very important one is I would go back and look at how you are writing your actual words in your invoice, because the way that you word it could trigger it being taxable versus non-taxable.
Oh.
So again, when you say the word shopping for X, Y, and Z items in a house, because that activity of shopping can result in a sale, that whole invoice becomes taxable. Again, I'm referring to state of California, but that's how specific the wording is. Because when an auditor is coming to the office and they're reading that invoice, they are in their minds thinking, well, you went somewhere and you went shopping.
Oh.
If you changed that wording to consultation for living room design, that is non-taxable. That's your ideas flowing out in the air. Maybe you're in the office, maybe not. But that one little change of how you're writing your invoicing could completely determine whether it's taxable or not.
Okay. And so the thing is, if we are physically shopping, right, we're not like teaching people how to avoid paying taxes, right? So if we're physically shopping, we're going to say that. But where in your mind, Shirry, is it that is if you are, tell me the difference in your mind. Like, I get the difference in the writing there, but where would you say that, like, technically I wasn't shopping here, but I could see where in the past I would just say I was shopping here? Or are you just saying, be careful. If you're not shopping, don't worry, and don't worry. Or are you just saying, be careful, don't, without thinking, just say shopping if you were not shopping? Is that what the lesson
Correct.
is?
Yeah,
Understood.
It's more the latter. It's
right.
more, if you're sitting in your office and you're half on the internet looking at stuff and you're using your library and, that's technically, yeah, you're shopping, but you're not out in the field with the client potentially making a purchase.
Okay.
That's your creative process. So just make sure you're writing it that way.
Wow. Yeah. Very, very interesting. And so, we have to have the whole gory details of the ending of the story. Did you just make a payment structure with
God, no. So what I learned is that you can always get bills from, I'm sure, any kind of entity, and you can negotiate them. So I spent months and months and months with an auditing, it was like an accountant that was assigned to my audit. And I would negotiate with them about making a payment plan. And then towards the end of it, I negotiated down. I basically negotiated down about half of it because I agreed to make payments for a year monthly. And then towards the end of that year, I said, if I make a larger sum, can we shrink this down a little bit more? And I had to present a number. They came back with a counter. I presented another. They came back with a counter. And we finally ended at a number. And I was able to close it out and be done.
Love it.
Then about 2 years ago, I had my second sales tax audit. And at that point, I had been for several years now with my new systems. And I was so excited. And I was thrilled to have the auditor come in. And she looked at my books right away. And she was like, I have never seen in Los Angeles, and there's a lot of designers here in Los Angeles, books like this. And you actually know what you're doing with, the minimum of 10% for procurement, but you're charging more, the way that you're setting up your contract. And they're looking at my contract. They want to make sure my wording is correct. They're looking at every single invoice.
Wow.
And she was blown away. Oh, you actually know what's up. You should probably go talk to some other designers. And that's when I started to think, I need to share this information and make sure the other design friends in the community know this.
I love it. Oh my goodness. And I have to say that is a point to be stressed as well, is the negotiating lesser fees. Lots of people think it's the government. I can't. You're more likely able to with the government.
You are. Yeah.
We've had that experience as well, not related to sales tax and things like that, but it's the truth. They just want it off their books. They just want to clean it out. They want to be done. Yeah. And the same with credit card companies, quite frankly, too. We've had situations with close family members, close friends. I remember back in the recession in 2008 that we had close family members and friends that were, absolutely over the coals with credit card debt. And my husband just sat down with them and looked at everything. And he made the phone calls on the behalf of this one friend in particular I'm thinking of. And literally 4 different credit companies just said, if we pay you in full now, will you take this much? And he was getting 10 and 20 and 30 cents on the dollar on the thing. You have to be able to come up with the money. When you negotiate like that, you got to come up with it. But
it's worth asking.
Exactly. And so, oh my goodness, what a learning lesson. And the thing is, the big, huge things are, that you do have to take responsibility. You have to have eyes wide open. You cannot assume that. I mean, when I think about the process of your accountant every quarter taking information from you and you as a business owner assuming that she is really upholding her professional responsibilities.
Right.
That's just, I understand why you assumed it. That's the big, like, cry now, cry out in this whole show is that we get how we assume other people are grown-ups and are doing the right thing. But ultimately, it is our responsibility to double check that they are doing the right thing.
Right. And that's why I don't look at it as a horrible, oh, woe is me. I mean, it was a school fee. I paid it. I learned a lot. It turned my business around because how else can I look at this, right?
Well, and I have to tell you, I have had situations with coaching designers where there have been big financial lessons learned from a myriad of different reasons and whys. And I'll say to you what I said recently in the last several months to one of my coaching clients. Well, better now than in 15 or 20 years into business, right? Right? Could you imagine if you had gone under their radar for 7, 8, 10 years? That outstanding tax bill would have been 6 figures.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, it would have been so painful.
Yes, very, 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 very. So, whoa, Shirry, that's amazing story. And of course, the telling of it in the hindsight, we are sort of glossing over. I'm sure in the moment it was very scary, very many sleepless nights. Yes, yeah. See, and that's the thing I want to make sure that we don't just gloss over, that when you face anything like this in your business, it's not as funny as it is, 10 years later.
No, exactly. Not even close.
No. Oh my goodness. Awesome. I love it, Shirry. I really appreciate your coming on and sharing this and being so honest, because I do think lots of people are going to start going and Googling their websites right now. Right. And making sure. So
I think so. I think it's a huge lesson, and I'm happy to share the information. It's my pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. I know the level to which Peter Lang operates a CPA firm is rare. And I also know just because your CPA doesn't do things exactly like Pete, it doesn't mean he or she isn't doing their job. So I'm certainly not condemning all CPAs. In reality, though, this is actually a little more of the reverse of that. I'm calling you out, the business owner. Okay. Like Shirry said, it wasn't that she skipped the business classes in design school. The classes that covered this type of business management aren't part of the curriculum. I get that. But it doesn't give you a pass. You don't get to not pay attention. And if you are paying attention, do you have an actual understanding of what you are paying attention to? Okay. So I'll give you this. Sometimes it really is. We don't know what we don't know. I definitely get that. So having been through this whole show now with Shirry and myself, maybe you're a little scared, and maybe you're thinking to yourself, what more can I do? If I have a bookkeeper, if I have a CPA, I'm doing everything the way I'm supposed to do it. And are you telling me, LuAnn, that I could still end up with a $43,000 bill from the government one day too? Well, the sad truth is, yes, I am. If you are trusting the professionals blindly, okay? There are people in every line of work that phone it in, that do par and subpar work. Just because someone is a CPA, a doctor, a lawyer, a bagel maker, does not mean that they have the personal standard of excellence that is necessary to deliver outstanding results to each and every client. So this is up to you to hire only people who have a work ethic that matches your own. And how do you know who they are? Well, you first start by understanding your part in the relationship. You show up prepared with questions that when answered, you will know if you are dealing with the right kind of professional. And conversely, when your questions aren't answered, when you are dismissed with a, hey, leave that to me, you don't need to know about that, you have to have the courage to say, no, ma'am, no, sir, you're not the person for me. Okay, you make it clear, respectfully, always works better, but you make it clear. You are the client, and they will help you understand, or you will look for someone else. There cannot be any middle ground on this, okay? Now, what was the one telltale line that Shirry said that could have been the tip-off to herself that she might eventually be in jeopardy? Do you remember what it was? She said she was fuzzy on the things her accountant was, I'm going to say the word allegedly, in charge of, right? I say allegedly because ultimately you are in charge of your finances, okay? And how clear is this? If you're not sure about that, who had to pay the $43K? Not our phone-it-in CPA, right? So you see, if the buck stops with you, you have to understand that the places and what the places are that the buck has been to, okay? So what the ultimate lesson here is, above the obvious of making sure your taxes are properly handled, the lesson is listen to your gut. You know, I call her your goddess voice. She or he, as the case may be, knows when something isn't right. And when you have that goddess voice inside saying, hey, you got to take care of this, you have to stop long enough to listen and to take the appropriate action, okay? And then the other important aspect of Shirry's conversation was regarding making the money itself, right? Of deciding what your margins will be and on learning how and where to buy for your clients and setting the standards for your firm and how you will charge for your design fees and for product and procurement. All right. Now, if this part is a little cloudy for you, I have some great news. This summer, starting July 22nd, 2020, Tracy Connell is going to teach Buy Wholesale for Profit. Yes, this is a live class, just like Sarah Lynn Brennan's class, Process Leads to Profits, and Vita's window treatment, Profit with Window Treatments was, right? This class is going to be taught live by Tracy starting July 22nd. It will go 6 Wednesdays in a row from 12:30 to 2 p.m. Eastern. In this class, you're going to learn how and why, mostly why, but how too, you need and you can stop buying retail, right? Learn the benefits of working with trade design showrooms like my friends at East End Interiors in New York and Schwartz Design Showrooms in New Jersey and Connecticut. And also learn how you can strategically create a few stocking dealer accounts for yourself, all right? Tracy has a proven record in this. Her firm, Tracy Connell Interiors, is a standout in efficiency and profitability. As one of my chairman of the board clients, Tracy is one of these. I know this to be true, for real, okay? I'm working with her in her business up close every single month. So check out this Friday's show where Tracy and I will be going into more detail on this exciting new opportunity for you to create profit in your design business. So if this has been a conundrum for you and you're in the newer stages of your business and you're not sure how to go from buying retail for your clients to this transition, this is the class for you. So you can check it out at buyWholesaleForProfit.com. And I'll also say, for more discussions on minimum product buys that you want to require your clients to have, on margins, on buying trade and wholesale, as well as the various ways your colleagues handle these aspects in their business, these shows will give you some more information. Each one of them handles it a little bit differently, but I think together they create a nice little body of work if this is a cloudy subject for you to start to formulate some ideas for yourself. So I would listen to 482 with Cheryl Clendenen, 504 and 505, Eric Ross, 496, Sally Williams, 372, Laura Michaels, 354, Deena Hollen, 520, Sandra Funk, and of course, for more on working with your CPA, Peter Lang's shows are 464 and 349. All of these will be in the show notes, okay? And I have one final point that I would like to make with you. It was just the tiniest of details in Shirry's choice of words, and I'm wondering if you caught it. When she was talking about the tax laws, and she wanted to be sure that we knew state to state could be different, did you hear the phrase that she said? Did you hear the turn of words? I'm going to say it to you. She said, quote, "Obviously, I'm not a professional that works in every state, so you should check yada, yada, yada." Okay? She said it so matter-of-factly, so effortlessly, so authentically. Shirry Dolgin sees herself without hesitation, without the need to qualify, and with assured confidence as a professional. Okay? Obviously, I'm not a professional that works in every state. You see, she didn't say I'm not that it's okay. She could have said, obviously, I'm a designer that doesn't work in every state. That's okay. I'm not saying that would have been wrong. But I just love that it rolled right off of her tongue. I'm not a professional that works in every state, so you should check. This is the tiny nuance of the way someone views themselves. Okay? So I wonder, do you see yourself this way as a professional? All right? Understand, we don't have to be perfect every day in every way. So don't wait for that day that you feel like you know everything. Okay? When you know you are a professional, others will see you that way too. Okay? It starts on the inside and then it happens on the outside. All right? This is just my 2 cents on a very minor sentence in the conversation. However, I found it quite significant. All right? Okay. Thank you, Shirry, for sharing your experience with us so that hopefully a colleague will avoid this exact fate. All right? And thank you, tons, for joining me today. I hope that you are safe and well. I hope you are doing something each day to build the business you imagine for yourself. And unlike Shirry's former accountant, I hope you decide to be excellent. Thank you so much for joining me again today. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks, your resource for custom window treatments and awnings. To learn how we can help you on your next interior design project, go to www.windowworks-nj.com. And if you're interested in working with me on your business, either through masterminds or one-on-one coaching, or you want to know how to get my book, The Making of a Well-Designed Business, or you just want to know what's going on in the podcast land and where I'm going to be, all of that is found at LuAnnNigara.com. Thank you so much. Have an excellent day.